This is our look ahead to the main political and financial events coming up next week. Investors' key concern will be whether the US economy goes over the fiscal cliff. President Obama is meeting leaders from both sides of Congress at the White House today to try and thrash out an agreement to avoid the tax hikes and spending cuts that kick in on the 1st of January. If any agreement does take shape, the House of Representatives has convened a session for Sunday so they can be ready to legislate. A small but growing number, though, suggesting Congress might try to stretch the deadline into the first 2 days of January. James Buckley of Barings Asset Management says the longer it drags on, the bigger the negative impact will be on equities.
I think if the likelihood of no deal being reached at all for instance Q1 next year becomes greater, that will clearly have a significant effect on equities, because right now consensus is the US economy will not go into recession in 2013. Anything that changes that consensus would certainly have negative impacts for the markets.
Other than the fiscal cliff issue, it should be a quiet start to the week, with most major markets closed for New Year holidays. Things start to pick up on Wednesday the 2nd, though, with the release of minutes from the last Fed meeting. The FOMC said it would buy $45 billion in longer-term treasuries each month, on top of buying $40 billion in mortgage-backed securities. It also vowed for the first time to keep interest rates low until the jobless rate drops to at least 6.5%. Also on Wednesday, France will hold a Treasury bill auction. Today, France halved its Q3 growth reading to just 0.1%. President François Hollande is banking on growth of 0.8% next year to meet its deficit targets, seen as a test of his fiscal credibility. Most analysts, however, view this target as overly optimistic. A few key items on the data agenda. Final PMI numbers for December expected to confirm the Eurozone's manufacturing and services sectors firmly mired in recession. UK manufacturing in a similar boat, but the dominant service sector is still growing, just. German jobless data expected to show the unemployment rate holding steady at 6.9%. Although the number of people out of work is growing, joblessness remains near its lowest level since German reunification more than 20 years ago. Investors get some idea of how the retail sector has fared over the crucial Christmas period on Thursday, when Next releases Q4 trading results. Shares in the UK fashion chain up some 40% this year, with its online and catalogue businesses helping it avoid the worst of the downturn. A number of assumptions being made next week too. Ireland assumes the EU presidency on January 1. Prime Minister Enda Kenny told me last week that Germany's election later in the year should be no barrier to European integration.
Clearly there are elections coming up in a number of countries, and that's always a feature in the minds of politicians and political leaders. But at the same time, I think there's an understanding that we have to deal with a particular range of problems, and jobs and growth and competitiveness is a fundamental issue for us. We've had lots of talk about governance, but perhaps not enough demonstration of how you can actually become competitive.
Also on New Year's Day, the UK assumes the G8 presidency for next year, and Russia takes over the G20 presidency for 2013. And finally, next Saturday sees the start of one of the world's toughest off-road races. The Dakar Rally stretches over 5,000 miles between Lima in Peru and Santiago in Chile. Formerly the Paris-Dakar Rally, it is now staged in South America for security reasons. Still one of the greatest motoring challenges on the planet, only about 40% of teams complete the race. That's our look ahead to next week. I'm Jamie McGeever. This is Reuters.